This is the Waupaca County Board of Supervisors meeting.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
I will call this Waupaca County Board of Supervisors meeting to order, and it's Tuesday, February 19th. It is past 9 a.m. and we're ready to go. Please press your roll call buttons.
Roll call shows 23 members present, 4 are excused.
Has the open meeting statement been legally fulfilled for the Little Wayne?
Yes, it has.
Thank you. Today, when we stand for silent meditation and a pledge, I really apologize for getting to remember in our thoughts and prayers last month, really of a pretty famous guy in this community that passed away, Mr. Fred Rasmussen, who sat over here for years, of course was in law enforcement for years, a real professional. If you ever got to meet him, you'll never forget him. And he had passed away before a meeting last time. I completely forgot about it. So please remember Fred and his family when we stand here for a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Okay, you all have the agenda to look over. Is there a motion for approval? Mr. Zog.
I move you approve the agenda as is.
Supervisor Laird.
I second it.
There's a motion and a second for the approval of the agenda for today. Any questions or discussion? Please vote.
Last chance to vote. Motion carries 23 to 0.
Likewise, I'd like to approve the minutes of the January 15th, 2019 meeting. Mr. Moore,
Move we approve the minutes as presented?
there is a motion by Mr. Moore for approval. Mr. Hendrick,
I will second that motion.
and a second by Mr. Darrell Hendrick. Question or discussion? Seeing none, please vote.
Terry? Thank you. Last chance to vote. Motion carries 23 to 0.
Number 7, we have ordinances / amendments of the General Code of Ordinances. A, Chapter 704, speed restriction on County Trunk Y. Mr. Byersdorf is coming up.
Good morning. The Village of Embarrass requested that a speed restriction or a speed zone not get changed, it just get extended in the Village of Embarrass. So I met with several county village supervisors on County Highway Y going north out of the Village of Embarrass. I brought the DOT along with me, and what ended up happening was the north side of Embarrass, Highway Y, going towards Shawano County, was starting to get developed with new houses. And as more and more developments occurred going north out of Embarrass, they outgrew the limits of that speed zone. So all this is to extend the speed zone of 25 mile an hour to encompass all of the additional houses that have been built through time on County Highway Y. It's only getting it moved like 500 feet closer to Palmer Road, so that's that.
Is there a motion for approval? Mr. Questlin? There is a motion by Mr. Questlin for approval. Mr. Zog,
I would second that.
and a second by Mr. Zog. Questions or discussion?
There's a question.
I don't see it.
It went away.
Okay, I'm sorry,
Again.
I was thinking you were on the motion. So.
No.
Supervisor Craig?
My question is to Casey. Yeah, it is on.
There you go.
My question to Casey is it 25 throughout the entire village of Embarrass?
Yes, it is. Through the entire village, it's 25, and as you start progressing north out of the village towards Shawano County, then it gets to be 35. We're just moving that 25 more into the 35.
Okay,
It
thank
already
you.
was 25.
Thank
Just
you.
extending the limits of it towards Cloverleaf Lakes.
Any other questions? Seeing none, please vote.
Last chance to vote. Motion carries 23 to 0.
Okay, we're down to resolutions. Resolution 8A, resolution number 37, 18-19, monitoring committee involvement.
Now therefore be it resolved that the Waupaca County Solid Waste Management Board recommends no further county board supervisor appointment to the monitoring committee for the Waupaca Foundry and the Town of Waupaca landfill agreement, and be it further resolved that the Waupaca County Board of Supervisors direct the county clerk to send a copy of this resolution to the Waupaca Foundry and the Town of Waupaca to amend listed membership to their agreement.
Need a motion for approval? Mr. Zog?
I move this be approved.
Mr. Zog moves for approval. Mr. Vasquez?
I second that motion.
And a second by Mr. Vasquez. Questions or discussion? Seeing none, please vote.
Sorry, yeah.
Supervisor Craig?
Thank you. I would like to know, why did the county have a representative on this monitoring committee to start with? Whose request was that? To help me further know why we're taking that person off. And does the town of Waupaca agree with that?
John is coming forth to tell us
Thank
exactly
you.
why.
Hello, everybody.
Hello, John.
Yes, the original reason county was involved with that is because we had, as a county, had just gone through the process of trying to site a landfill up there by where the PTF is now. And so Roger was well versed with all the details of getting a landfill sited and all the processes and the people involved. So he volunteered to help the town and the foundry come to an agreement. So there was a ton of meetings involved. They nailed down, what everybody was gonna be compensated for their property around. It wasn't really, there was no real county responsibility involved. It wasn't our job to make this work. It's just, Roger had the knowledge base from just going through that process, so he helped out the town. And as far as if the town's okay with us coming out of it now, I guess they're okay. Well, basically, without being involved with this monitoring committee, we really have no difference. We can come in and help them as much as we could if we were part of the monitoring committee if they need help. Basically, the only way that would come about is if there became like the foundry wasn't following through on all the things that are part of that agreement. It's the DNR that regulates the landfills. We don't have any regulation on it. So we could basically say, hey, we could contact our contacts in the DNR and say, hey, something's not being done the way it should be. Can you guys do something about it? We have no real authority to help. So, but we certainly would help with the town, and they were okay with that. So,
Thank you.
Thank you. If you remember, Mr. John Penny was a representative for years, and he took that with him. Any other questions? Please vote.
Last chance to vote. That motion carries 23 to 0.
Next item is B, resolution number 38, 18-19, accept donation.
Now therefore, be it resolved that the Waupaca County Board of Supervisors accepts the donation request purchase of 5 ballistic shields for the Waupaca County Sheriff's Department in the amount of $5,000 from the family of Kitty Wenskus.
Supervisor Craig?
Move to approve.
There's a motion by Supervisor Craig for approval. Mr. Johnson?
Second.
And a second by Mr. Johnson. Any questions or discussion? Seeing none, let's vote.
Last chance to vote. That motion carries 23 to 0.
HC, resolution number 39, 18-19, Community Development Block Grant, Economic Development Program, Revolving Loan Funds Program closure. Mr. Teal, good morning.
Morning, everyone. We're going to throw up a slide here. So on February 1st of this year, that was the official closing date of this program. And so I've brought the final numbers today that Sherry and Heidi and I have worked out, and we've submitted our closure report to the State of Wisconsin Department of Administration. And so we're just waiting for them to send back a letter to approve the numbers that we sent them and the closure of the fund. So the final numbers here are, that's what we need to send back to them in cash, the $956, $570, $51. And then that includes, the $466,000 in receivables. So, but they have to have that back in cash in order for us to be eligible to get that total amount back in grant funds. So that's the plan. And in order to do that, we have the city of Clintonville and the city of Marion helping us out, without going into too many details of how this all works. Their revolving loan fund money is basically defederalized as of February 1st. I can get into more details of that if you want me to. I'm actually going to do all that in a report that I'm putting together this month, so you'll have that. But essentially, they're going to provide that amount of cash to us, and then Marion wants to get out of the revolving loan fund business entirely, so they're also going to assign, they have one loan of $22,404, so they're assigning that to you also. And in return, then, we're going to do two projects in each of those communities for that amount of grant funding. And so they basically are getting grant funds to do projects in return for providing the cash for us to buy out the receivables. And then we can continue to have a loan fund in Waupaca County. So if you just go down a little bit farther, so after the two projects that they will have done in their community, and I will be doing those projects for them for free, and there will be $438,000 left for a project. And
we have 2 years to spend this money. I do not want to give it back to the state. So we need to find a project that's eligible in Waupaca County for that amount of money. There was going to be less because the city of New London was going to be part of this too. But I found out last Wednesday that they took a loan after the cutoff date for them to fall into the category of just keeping their money. So they're actually kind of in the same boat we are. They can't participate with cash. They have to close out their program the same way we do. And so they're no longer part of this. They're doing their own thing, basically the same process that we're following. And so that remains to them that we will have more money to do a project in this county. So at some point then I will be sitting down with Heidi and we're gonna find a project to use that amount of money in Waupaca County before, the project has to be started within 2 years, and then we have 2 years to complete it. Again, I will do all the grant administration stuff and, make it all work. Terry?
Oh, wait, we gotta make a motion.
Oh, I'm sorry. And then, of course, this includes the fact that the remaining money in those receivables, then you would be assigning to the corporation, and that money would be going into a new revolving loan fund managed by the Waupaca County Economic Development Corporation. That's part of the resolution too.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion for approval of resolution number 39. Mr. Morick,
Move that we go approve resolution number 39.
there is a motion by Mr. Morick for approval. Mr. Nygaard,
Second.
second by Mr. Nygaard. Questions or discussion?
Yeah, David, is that all, is this thing working?
No. You gotta request to speak and then they'll turn it on for you, Terry. Yeah.
Sorry about
It's
that.
okay.
Does it have to be used for just for one project? You can't split it up 2 or 3?
No.
Just one project, but.
It's gonna have to be one project because they do not want 10 projects to have to manage, or, they want as few projects as possible to manage. So, yeah, they might cut us some slack because of the amount of money that we're talking here, close to $1 million. So we might be able to get one more project, but we probably will not get more than 4 total to use up that 956.
But once it comes back to us at some point, then it can remain the way it's been, where you can do several projects, right?
Are you talking about the CDBG funds?
Right.
Yes. Well, they have to fit the eligibility that the program is part of. So it's HUD's program, it's their money, that community development block grant stuff. So there are a number of restrictions that you have and a number of eligible uses that you have. So we have to fall into those categories. It'll make it a little bit challenging, but, I'm going to work my butt off to make sure we want to use that money.
Mr. Quistman?
What type of, give me some examples of projects that would be eligible.
Street, sewer, community development, or community centers, fire stations, rehabbing, or taking buildings down, basically a lot of community development type projects, okay, that benefit low to moderate income. That's the whole point of the program. So we have one identified in Clintonville already. They know what they're gonna do. The challenge for us is going to be, it has to benefit either, it has to benefit low to moderate income people. We have only a certain area in our county that fits that definition. And like Marion is over 51% LMI. Clintonville is too. But most of the areas in the county are not.
So then you have to identify certain areas you gotta go that you believe are, and you have to go and survey the residents that are gonna benefit from that project in that area to establish that you have 51% low to moderate income in that area. My goal here is, because they added a couple of special things to this project that they normally don't have in the Community Development Block Grant Program of eligible projects. One of those is broadband. That's what I really want to do with the money. But the guys at DOA are still unsure of how we're going to make that work. So, you know, I'm going to be working that angle real heavily. I have the Outagamie County person who is interested in you know, spending their money for broadband too. So we talked about, hey, can we work together and get bigger bang for our buck here? And so I gotta investigate all that stuff, but.
Any other questions? Please vote.
Last chance to vote. That motion carries 23-0.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, David, for your expert work all these years with that, and how you're handling this is super. You're the envy of many counties to have a person like you.
Using their money, that's what I say.
Okay, we next go down to reports. We have the Park and Rec Department report for Mr. John Francis. Got pictures up there. Oh, that's his. Okay. Thought I turned on some movies.
Morning again, everybody.
Good morning, John.
Yeah, so I just wanted to talk a little bit about Parks and Rec. We haven't been up here addressing the whole board in quite a while. So wanted to talk about a few of the things we've got going on, some of the projects that we went through, finished up in the last year, and then some of the projects that we have coming up in the next year or so. So I just wanted to say we've got a great staff. We've got basically 4 full-time park people, and then Christy in the office there. And we're about to lose one of them, Darren Mann. He gave me his official paper there today, so he's moving up to Ashland. So we're going to be losing him here next month. But he's been here 20-some years. He'll be a big hole to fill. A lot of experience there, but we'll keep rolling on. It'll be another short-handed summer for us, but so be it. So I'll just jump into this thing here, and we do take care of a lot of parks and trails and whatnot throughout the county, and I'm kind of glossing over the routine stuff because I mean a lot of you are well aware of what we do and whatnot, but we do have 40-some parks and trails we take care of. A big chunk of that is the fairgrounds, a lot of buildings out there and whatnot that we maintain. But today I'm just going to kind of focus on the bigger projects, things that have happened here. So this picture I took last fall up at Keller Park there, just I thought it was a nice picture. So try and get this thing to, it does go forward. All right, one of the big projects we had here that wrapped up last year was the Grandstand Pavilion at the fairgrounds. It's 100 by 104 feet. It's basically a building that people can rent out, that it's used during fair for various functions, but the big center part there is 60 by 104, and it's wide open in the middle. I got a couple pictures here. That's the back side of it there. And on the, I guess it'd be the south side, we do have that open porch looking thing, and it's people are starting to find it. We had it open most of last year for use. We were working the bugs out on how and what we need to do to run this place. So this year should be a really good year for this building. It's already been used several times this winter as people find out about it. Here's a inside portion of it. So it's just a big wide open space. People can do whatever they need to do out there. We've had some graduation parties, a wedding. They have some of those quinceañeros out there. It's a pretty big deal. It's a really nice facility. That's looking at, there's a kitchen area that people can use. It's just a warming kitchen. There's nothing industrial in it, but this is inside the kitchen. And one of the things when we were doing this building, the quote we got from a lot of the builders was about $40,000 to do this kitchen. We're like, oh, that's crazy. So we just had them put the steel studs in, and we finished out that room, saved a bunch of money when we did that. We did that ourselves. We do have specific tables, these round tables. Seems like everyone wanted the round tables, and chairs that are specific to this building. So normally in other buildings out at the fairgrounds, we're moving things here and there, and it's kind of a pain getting everything where it needs to be. These stay in that building and are strictly used in that building. And one of our staff, we were looking at racks and stuff to move them around. You know, each one of those racks to buy was like $800. So we have Pete there. He did all that for us. He bent all the metal, welded it all together, and I think it cost us about $150 a piece. So we try to save money wherever we can when we get in that stuff. And those are the kind of chairs we got. And he made all the chair racks and stuff for us too. So that's been a really good building. It's the fire and ice people that run their the snowmobile races and bikes and quads out there. They seem to really enjoy having a nice warm place to do their event out there. So, and like I say, we're getting more and more people using it all the time. So I just continue on. Another project here that's almost wrapped up, 90% of it's done, is the Crystal River Park there, access. And if you're not familiar with where this is, the road going that way, that's County K, and then that's the Parfordville Cemetery. That's Parfordville Road right there. So just south of Waupaca here. This is what the proposed plan was of what we were gonna do. Basically, we're trying to get down to the Crystal River there along the top of the slide and give people access to the river. Just on the other side of this road here is where Bill Belkey's operation would take out. So a lot of the public was trying to use his private land, which they, you know, they don't want the public using that. So now they have an option to come just a little further down the river, and we're right there. So I'll just show a few pictures of that process. This is the river frontage you guys have with this parcel, and you're seeing the bridge on Parfordville Road there. It's a lot of river frontage there. It's pretty nice. This is really low water here, but our access comes out right about in the middle of that slide now. And the final thing we have to do out there is to improve. We're going to put some tiered rock levels there so you can actually transfer out of your canoe or kayak and get up or get into the river easier. Right now it's kind of a 2-foot drop from the bank, so we're fixing that this spring. We intended to do that last fall, but the water raised real high again, so we couldn't get at it. This is just when we started clearing the trees and whatnot there. Highway was a real big help on this. They did a lot of the work. They came out after we cut all the trees and pushed all the stumps and shaped the parking lot. That's what you're looking at there. Then going down the hill towards the river, they had to knock the hill down and build up the path so it was a reasonable grade. And this is the other side of that. Did a lot of work out there, real professionals. I gotta give Casey thanks for getting those guys out there and getting that done right away. We wanted to have a restroom out there. It's a vault style restroom like most of our more remote parks, and we huff cut concrete, got the bid for that. It's kind of neat how they do that. They do that's the vault right there. They just we provide a hole. They come out in one day. They're done. So they pick up the building. It's all in one piece and set it on top of the vault. And then when it's all done, we backfilled and everything. Highway came out and paved. So the project is almost done. If you haven't been there yet, you should check it out this summer. We've got a lot of good comments from the public saying, "Wow, I didn't know that was there," you know, and it'll get some pretty heavy use this summer, I think. So that's been a real good project. Next thing I was going to talk about here, the winter recreation trail. For the last several years, we've been grooming a trail for cross-country skiing, both skate and traditional, the fat tire bicycles and snowshoers. We've been doing that over by the high school up into the King Veterans Home property. But the problem we were having there is we couldn't find a good spot to keep our groomer on site. Everyone wanted us to take it out of there right away in spring, and then we had to pay to move this giant container around. It was getting expensive. So we started looking at other options, and basically we picked up our ball and went home and talked to the country club over here, and they were willing to allow us to open a trail to the public on their property in the winter. And this is the first year that we have groomed out there, and it's actually a lot more scenic trail. It goes up and down through the trees there. It kind of follows their golf course, and it's got a bridge and everything. So it's a really good spot. If you're into that sort of activity, you should check it out. They benefit because we bring people in, and if they have their country club open, people can use that, and the public benefits because they get a nice place to go. This is the rig we use to groom that. That was donated entirely by the local group that they raised all the funds. They talked to different businesses. That was donated to the county, like I say, a few years ago. And you got another view of it here. So our staff runs that machine and we maintain it. And the little groomer there, it makes that corduroy track behind it, and on the far side there's a little thing that comes down and sets the track for the classical skiing. It's pretty good setup. It takes quite a while to get people to figure out how to groom properly with that, and that was where Darren excelled. Ann is really good at that too, so she's been doing most of it this winter, and she's getting there too. So that trail will continue on. He had a lot of good comments of the people that have found it over there. So continue on. Last fall we opened up 5 campsites up at Keller Lake Park. The reason we only went with 5 is there's a state law on campground siting that you have to be within 400 feet of a restroom and a well. So the only restroom and well out at Keller Park there is way out on this point by the little picnic shelter. So we had to draw a 400-foot loop around that, and that's why our sites ended up over here. This area is all kind of used up already. We've got a playground and whatnot out there. So we developed 5 campsites. It opened last fall. After Labor Day, we didn't get a whole lot of use out there. But this summer, once people find it, I think we'll get plenty of use out there. And then in the future, it would be nice to be able to, put another well, and we've got all this property here. We could develop a nice loop of campsites and stuff in the future. So that's down the road a ways. This is one of the campsites there. And then another project that wrapped up last year was the county runs the snowmobile and winter ATV trail program. We take care of our section in the county. The clubs, we deal with an association of 17 snowmobile clubs, and I meet with them once a month to discuss issues. But the county's role in that whole process is we apply for the grant funds to pay them to groom and maintain the trails. And that money comes from the registration and trail pass funds from the state. So we're a go-through for the money. We don't take any of that money. We pass it on to the clubs, and they get paid based on what percentage of miles they groom. Well, the problem is throughout the state, some clubs, and throughout the years, trails change, whatever, they're getting paid 10 miles to groom a 6-mile long trail. No one's checking up on it. It's hard to tell. So what the state wanted is every county had to turn in a GIS map of the snowmobile trails. Obviously they change a little bit every year, but we were actually really close. I think we were within a few miles of what we were telling the state we had compared to what we actually had when it was all GPS. And we were actually underestimating by about 3 miles. So we did pretty good. We have 373 miles of funded snowmobile trail in the county. And then it's over 400 when you add in all the club trails. So there's also 109 miles of winter ATV trail in the county. So all those little squiggles there, We had help from the Land and Water Department there, Dan McFarland. He was a big help. He went out and he's the one that did all this mapping, gathered up all the data that some of the clubs ran their own trails with GPS. So we got files from them, and then we ran quite a few trails ourselves and made an accurate map. Had to get it into the state by September of last year. So now we can actually go in, look at what sections, what's been funded, and from here on out, we'll have a more accurate record of what is what we're talking about. And another part of the snowmobile program that we deal with is whenever there's a bridge or something needed, whether it's replacing an old one or a new one entirely, the county, we run that project. We apply for the grant, we go out and do the surveys for the sites, and then bid out the bridge, and those bridges are all owned by the county, so for better or worse. So, so that's the snowmobile program there. And then looking into the future here for next year, we have at the fairgrounds an addition we're putting onto the hog sheep barn, 50 by 60. That'll give them room to have a show ring, a little bigger show ring. Mainly the hog group is having real issues with the space. We have a really small show ring on that building. They can't get enough competitors in there to do what they need to do. And they have raised, the Market Animal Committee and a couple other groups have raised money to outfit that building once we have the building done. The county's gonna pay for that structure, and the group is raising money to pay for bleachers and pens and all that fun stuff that need to go in that. So that's gonna happen this year. We have play equipment going in at the fairgrounds and Little Wolf Park up in Banawa. It's nothing huge, just you know, swing set and a couple little other things for kids to play with and on at the fairgrounds there. And see, the Nelson Park restroom, that's just south of town as well. We were gonna hopefully replace that restroom that's there with a very similar one to what we put at the Crystal River Park. It's got a couple benefits. One, it's built all out of concrete. It'll last a really long time, and it's ADA compliant. Our current one that's there, you can't get wheelchairs in and whatnot. So we're trying to fix that. And it's probably 30 years old. So Shaw's Landing parking lot, that's just a matter of we're gonna have highway go out there and add a lot of gravel, try and stiffen that parking lot up. In the spring is when that gets hit the hardest, and everything's soft out there, and it just turns into a big mud pit. So we're gonna add a lot of gravel to that and hopefully make that more usable. And Camp Victory, that's kind of a big deal. We've been pushing for quite a few years to try and get that into a campground. Ran into some problems with that process as far as agreements that were signed in the past and what we can and can't do out there. So one of the things we have to do is have it open to the public. The grant money that was used to purchase that property says it has to be open as public green space. So the way we've got it now, where you can rent it, or we had it until last year, you could rent that camp, but that gate stayed closed all the time unless someone was out there. This year, the gate's open. General public can get back in there, check the place out. I encourage people to go out there and look at it. It's a beautiful site. There's a lot of river frontage there, and there's some good fishing along there. So check it out. In the spring, it'll be opened up. Then the last thing there, we're trying to, and I know Highway's working on things too, invasive species control on the Tamara River Trail. We mow that multiple times a year, and you know, we're spreading that poison parsnip around. We try not to, we spray here and there, but we're bringing in a company that specializes in this stuff to basically develop a plan for us so we can try and attack mainly the poison parsnip, but there's spotted knapweed and a bunch of other invasives in there too that we're trying to control. So trying to be a good neighbor and not spread that stuff. The flip side of that is sometimes our right-of-way is only 100 foot wide through a lot of those places, and you see fields of that poison parsnip. So we're gonna have to work with local landowners as well too, and see if they would be willing to treat their land and try and slow the spread of this stuff. So the last thing I was gonna mention, I passed out on all your desks this green piece of paper. It's just a summary of our revenues for the last several years, is to give you an idea of what's out there for parks and what we bring in. So is there any questions anybody has regarding park stuff?
Questions or comments? Mr. Gerald Murphy?
Well, John, it sounds like you and your crew are doing a wonderful job. One thing I wanted to ask you about, and that has to do with the Keller Lake campground. You say you have 5 sites right now. Look to expand in the future, more sites. Where does it get to a point where you need to have on-site employee there?
Right, you know, and it depends on who you talk to. You know, it's a lot of counties, what they will do is with their smaller campground. We couldn't have a huge campground because we don't have that much room. But if we had a smaller campground there, what a lot of counties will do is have a camp host that is basically they get to camp for free, and then maybe they get a percentage of any firewood they sell or whatever. That's how Portage County runs their stuff. So the county doesn't have an employee there 24 hours, but they have somebody there that is able to call if there's a problem or whatever. So that's how a lot of counties deal with the smaller campgrounds. They'll have a camp host. Then at least you have somebody there with eyes on the situation. If somebody's getting unruly, they can call the sheriff's department or whatever. So
What do you and your committee envision as being the maximum number of campsites that piece of property will eventually hold?
we haven't really explored that. You know, I mean, this is just, we wanted to get a campground out there. We were aiming at Camp Victory, and that, so we kind of pivoted a little bit and said, hey, let's just do a little campground here at Keller, see how it goes. People used to camp there years ago, and a lot of folks have come up to us and said, oh, that's great that you're going to allow us to camp out there again. You know, I think a few people are going to be disappointed when they see where the sites are. They'd want us to camp out there on the edge of the lake, but we can't get them there by state code. So,
Thank you.
yep.
Supervisor Gray?
Thank you for your report, John. It's good to see what the camps, grounds, and everything that you're doing. My question is, because we only hear things sometimes, little bits here and there. I heard from someone that at Gill's Landing, you put in like riprap, but then you had to take out picnic tables and different structures and things, and now you can't put them back. Where are you in that process? Will they be able to go back there for the public?
Well, what happened was we redid that whole seawall there at Gill's Landing. So in order to tear out we tore off the top of the old seawall, the bottom's still there, and we built a new seawall in front of it. In that whole process, they had to get in there and pile, the pilings in there and everything. We had 3 of those little picnic shelter, the 2-post things that just cover a picnic table. We had 3 of those there, but they were in the way while we were doing this process, so we pulled them out. Project took almost 2 years to do. And we came back in and we're like, well, instead of using these rickety old things that were 20-some years old already, let's put a new one in there. Seemed like part of the project, didn't worry about it. Well, we put a shelter there on the one side, and we planned on putting one on the other, just to give people some shade or whatever if they're out there fishing from shore. We can't do that. So, I mean, I talked with zoning. They said, hey, you guys can't have that there. There's a 75-foot setback. There is a variance to allow a gazebo type structure within 35 or beyond 35 feet of the edge of the river, but we didn't have that room. If you go 35 feet from the edge of the river, you're basically in a parking lot. So we are going to address that. It isn't a done deal, but I think I know those structures are going to have to go away because we're violating the state codes. It's not a zoning rule. It's a state DNR codes about shoreland setbacks. So it's not something it's not a county rule that they're enforcing. It's a state rule. So we do have to remove that one that's there, and then we won't put one on the other side. So we'll have picnic tables out there, but we can't have a structure in that grassy area. So.
Thank you.
Supervisor Fleece? Supervisor Spearings?
John, what or where or how does the process stand with open camping at the fairground for the general public?
We are, right now it's still just with events, you know. We were kicking that around and that's something we need to talk about at the park committee meetings some more. We haven't settled on anything yet, so.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Seeing none, thanks very much, John, for your excellent report. Good information. At this time, we're going to take an 8-minute break. Okay, we're ready to roll here. Number 9 on reports is 9B, the new highway facility update from Mr. Casey Beiersdorf, our commissioner.
Good morning again.
Good morning.
Make sure I understand how to use this. Okay. First, I'll start off the morning by just saying that the project has been going really well for our new highway facility. It's been every day we're getting more and more progress to the point where I went out this morning and took updated photos to show you what had been set for the admin steel. So we'll go through the project progress report slowly, and if you want to follow along with me, it should be on your iPad. The executive summary, I know Myron helps us create this, and they should be planning for winter delays, and they are. Essentially, we've had 12 winter delays, whether it's been a polar vortex that's hit us or a significant snowstorm, followed by a big rain event which created ice. It's just winter weather here in Wisconsin. So with that, the project there's been 12 working days that they've essentially said, stay home, we don't have anything for you to do today. Overall, our drone flew this facility, and I'll show you the updated photos. We might even shut the lights down in front a little bit if possible. But this is a photo of the facility looking to the south. The precast panels for the south wall got set. Unit B is basically what you're seeing in this photo. So keep scrolling a little bit. The cold storage building is done. All the concrete footings and all the concrete walls are done. Now it's Myron following up with the big yellow crane that you might see on site, setting the steel. And once the steel structure gets set, which is the skeleton, then the outside walls get stood up, which are being delivered by Spancrete. And they're going up fast as the trucks can come. The cranes essentially can set them. This wall that you see here is facing to the south. Way to the left, this area in here, this is the metal fabrication bay. To include this one next to it, that's where the steel is going to get hauled in and stored, and then this will be where all the trucks come in and out. The fabrication bays, essentially if we have a long-term project such as a major repair or something that's going to take a couple months, this big door here to the left is going to basically house that one spot. On the other side, or the north wall, which you can't see here, is going to be for short projects, in and out kind of deals. Snowplow hits a bridge or whatever happens, it hits a big rock in the ditch and you need to do a quick fix on it. We've got different doors that are meant for long-term fixes and short-term fixes. Also on this south wall where the crane is kind of hanging out, that big door, them doors in there are your mechanics bays. There's 5 on the south side, and then there's also 5 on the north side, which you can't see. Keep scrolling up. Get into the next photo. This is you're looking at the north wall. Notice each of these big doorway openings have been basically been barricaded with 2x4s and plastic. That's because they're heating the inside of the building right now to a temperature of 40 degrees. That helps all of the interior work take place, like the plumbing, the electricians, the guys that are finishing the roof from the inside. It's keeping heat within the building. Keep going. This photo is of the sand salt storage, where we put a mixture of sand and salt. It's pretty much up. The contractor said yesterday that after Monday it was fixed, just because there's some flashing in some peak tin that needed to get put in right up at the roof. So you notice that it doesn't look quite finished up here at the roof end. That got finished yesterday. Outside of that, It's pretty well done for our sand building. Here's is a photo of Myron comes in with big big water lines that essentially get heated up, and then it unthaws the ground, and then they put blankets over the top of it. Right now we had about 4 feet of frost inside the building, and we needed to unthaw it to the point so the plumber could put in the rest of his plumbing, the electrician could put in the remainder of his underground electrical work, and then once it got unthawed, folks came in there, and this area has already been gravel added to it. The gravel got added to it, and now we are going ahead and putting in a plastic barrier to keep the vapor from it creating moisture during the winter inside the building. Then they're putting in 2-inch styrofoam. Then they're putting in some in-floor heating. Then the rebar sits on top of that, and by the end of next week, this area B will have all the concrete poured inside the building. So something you really can't see from the outside unless you come out and take a tour with me. As a recap, the weather has a significant impact over the last 4 weeks. The storm sewer structures we had a little bit of issue with earlier on. Contractor came back, fixed them all at his cost. All of the solar panels in Area B have all been installed, so the roof is essentially on as far as the temporary roof. Then there's going to be wooden blocking roof, then insulation, and then the it's almost like a neoprene plastic felt fabric. That'll be the permanent roof will get installed during the winter. Keep scrolling up to our next photo. This is a picture of last week inside the building. What you see running probably 10 feet below the roof is where the cranes are going to sit on top of to hoist equipment back and forth. That's a picture of the ground thawing system that got installed prior to the blankets getting put over the top of it. So we were able to work during the winter. This is another photo as if you're sitting on top of County Highway A looking towards the west. We're going to fly this in a little bit because we have new drone photos. Another photo of the crane. The overhead doors are going to get installed very soon. It's just that when you have 26 overhead doors for the facility, they know that just construction material and equipment is going to damage 1 or 2 of them. So they actually purchased an additional door for them reasons. The windows on this area are contracted to start getting, or coordinated to get started this next week, Monday. So they're going to saw out areas above the overhead doors and start installing them next week. Another photo of the exterior north wall. Here's a photo of work taking place in the oil changing pit. So that's the rebar that's has been installed. That area has been poured already once the pit gets poured for the oil changing station, kind of like if you go into a Pennzoil or a 10-minute, there's always a guy working from underneath your vehicle. We have the same capabilities as we did in our existing facility. It's a lot bigger now. And that should be pretty close to being done. So with that, we'll move on to our drone photos that were taken last week, and we'll watch the video. Our foreman's kid, I think he's about 15 years old. He's our pilot, and this summer I'm going to bring him in here and we're going to recognize him with a resolution for his service for taking videos all the time. Not charging us anything for it. It's pretty neat. So he definitely takes his time on it. Right underneath the drone right now is our big county salt building. That's getting installed. The roof trusses are getting installed here next week. Right below us now is the sand building. That's now completed as far as what the contractor needs to do. Now the electrical contractor needs to move into that building, and then the overhead door contractor needs to move in. There's going to be a point right here where we're going to pause it, Jill. Right there. No, that's good. So this area here, all of the concrete footings have been poured and the frost walls have been put in. With that, this is the area that's going to be storing all of our trucks. This area is larger than the area that's already been put up. So a question that Supervisor Craig has is it still doesn't look big enough. Well, We've only built not quite half of it. So if you're on site and you're saying it's not big enough, it's because it isn't built yet. So with that, what happens in the progression steps is the crane will end up moving over into this area and setting the interior steel or the skeleton, and then you're going to see them same type of spancrete walls get put all the way around the exterior of this. So then it's going to look larger than what you see now. The area way to the north, which is the 3 garage bays, that's your truck wash, your brine station, and your manual truck wash. So this is where we're going to wash vehicles. We currently have one at our existing facility, but it also supplements as our brine room, and it also supplements as a kind of our paint room. So now we have them separated. You can keep moving the video along. There's looking back towards US Highway 10. The Nichols Farm is just to the north of us. 2 days after this snow event, it snowed at 14 inches here in Waupaca. And the roofers, they have snow blowers right on the roof, and they just, it's like you're doing your driveway or a sidewalk, they're just blowing snow right over the edge, getting it off so that they can keep progressing forward. Right underneath you now is the cold storage building. I've got some additional photos I'll show you after this. The contractor has some of the steel started for that cold storage building. That cold storage building is going to have our tar for our construction barrels, our blades for the plow trucks, and then our rollers, stuff we don't use during the winter for construction. A lot of that now will be under a roof. The height of the building is about 30 feet from ground to the roof, what you see there. Of that 30 feet, you may ask, why do you need 30 feet? It's because when you take a quad axle dump truck and you put the box in the air, say you want to work on some of the hydraulics or the ram or something, you're going to be at 22, 23 feet high for that truck. Then you have to compensate for the height of the crane that has to move in there, and then you have to compensate for the height of the roof trusses. So essentially that's why we've come up with a 30-foot wall. There's one wall that looks like it's just hanging out there to the left. That's the firewall that separates the administrative offices to your left from the warehouse to your right. And that's just the mechanics bay where you see the big box. When you're talking about the financial progress of the building, the contractor has invoiced the county roughly $7 million worth of work. There hasn't been $7 million of work performed out there yet, but some of these contractors have asked for half of their money to purchase the brine system. They have to pay the brine making people half, and then once they install it, they have to have upfront money for that. They have to pay for the cranes, so that we made a down payment on the cranes so that them can start going into fabrication for that contractor. Once they get installed, inspected, and meet code, and they're ready, then we'll end up paying the contractor. So with that, Myron has requested a little over $7 million from the county, of which we retain 10% of it, or 6 to 10%. We've retained right now $354,000 of that, because until we check the box and it's turnkey ready for us to use, then we pay them that additional amount. We don't pay them everything and say good to go, otherwise we don't want someone to walk away without finishing it. We're getting to the end of the drone here, and it's moving just as planned, schedule-wise, time-wise, and it's moving just as planned financial. So both of them two are big things that I like to monitor. Our monthly meetings are going well, to include the architect coming every 2 weeks. Just this morning, so last weekend that photo was taken of the drone, and then I'll show you a couple more photos here. This was just built yesterday, so this steel, that's how fast it's moving. Just this steel in the administrative office was put up just yesterday alone, and it moves so fast. There's another photo of it, and then yesterday, the next photo, Jill, would be, that's just one piece of the cold storage building's framework starting to get erected. I took that photo this morning. So it's moving well, And I'd be happy to entertain any questions you may have beyond what I've shared with you.
Questions for Casey?
Thank you.
Thank you. Great report. Okay, we go to C. Courthouse Urgent Needs Project Update by Mr. Hanson, our Maintenance Director.
Good morning.
Good morning, Ron.
Now, some of you may have already seen this. I presented this to a few of the committee meetings, but I wanted to just be sure that all the county board was aware of everything that went on. We all know what we had going on during the summer with all the construction around the building. The outside work, that I don't have pictures of. Everyone pretty much saw what was going on there. That was a lot of work to fix a lot of the brickwork that we had issues with. We had water getting down in behind the brick, and basically there were some areas that you could actually see the rust seeping out from some of the joints. And that was something that during our initial project with Dimension 4, they recommended as something to take care of in the very near future. So we went ahead with this project. A lot of you may not have seen the interior work that was done if you hadn't been up on the other floors. So I just wanted to kind of show people what was going on. If you were to go to the second floor lobby area, this area here was all lobby back to about this point. And what they did is they walled all this in and created a conference room, leaving about half of the existing lobby there, which realistically is plenty of space. They really didn't have an impact on the public coming in with that. This is inside the conference room. Basically, they just put this wall up along here. They retained the windows, put in the heating, new lighting and HVAC, and all the lighting that was done in this project was all done with LED lighting. And most of it is actually dimmable too, which works out really nice. I think there's some jealous people of the new lighting.
Why are you looking at me? Right. It's me.
So they created this big conference room for second floor because there was some other areas in the recent times that they had to eliminate some conference rooms to create more workspace. And I could show you that when we get there. This is basically just as you get off the elevators on second floor. They redid this whole lobby area. This had a metal gate that they had for security that ran along here that was closed at night. Now what they did is there's actually electronic roll down doors, that big wooden doors that come down. They basically have 3 workspaces here, 2 at the counter here and 1 at this other space down here. The entrance to this area remained the same, the door right here. If we skip ahead, this is behind the counter. This, in the past, if you were at the front counter, you could look back in that big clerical area that was wide open with a bunch of basically just cubicles. What they did now is they walled all it off, created some work area behind this rock wall here. So there's the 3 spots at the counter. There's another desk area just behind this corner, and a lot of storage and counter space right behind this area. So then we go, whoops, behind that wall. This goes into the former open area, the clerical area. And what they did is, this actually was larger, this whole big room. They put this wall in here and basically created 6 office areas that weren't existing before. That, I believe, is being used by behavioral health, I believe, is using that now. And they put in these walls here, half walls, basically to replace those old cloth cubicle walls. And this is from the other angle. So within that, they basically have 12 workstations in that area now. So they basically, I think before that, they had roughly, say, 10 workspaces in that area. Now they have 12 in this area, but they also gained 6 offices along that far wall. And also in here, it's all new LED lighting, new ceiling. Can't get this to go. Help me out, Joe. Okay, so this was a former conference room, and they basically turned this into a work area with 4 workstations. That was the main need for that conference room that they built in the front lobby. And with a lot of the office areas being used up for new work areas, they needed more additional storage. So this was just kind of a big nook in the back hallway that wasn't really used for anything. They decided to put this in to kind of create some storage for a lot of their papers and office items. This is storage room in the 2nd floor back hallway. In the past, this wall was not here. It was just all wide open. So what they wanted to do was they wanted to have this used by basically the whole floor, to leave this all unlocked and let all the employees use it. So in doing so, they created this wall and added card access to this, because this is where they need to keep their, they have some freezers and refrigerators in there for, I believe it's meds that they store in there that need to be secure. So that's how they set that up for public health, using this as a secure area. So now if we go to 3rd floor, this is basically, in the past, this door frame here used to be the back entrance to the DA's office. And what they wanted to do is they took that door out and pushed it back in here. So this is the rear entrance to the DA's office now, but you can almost see the card reader right here, and just around that corner there's a door that enters into a former storeroom. And inside that storeroom, they removed all the rolling file cabinets in there, basically gutted out the whole room, and this is what the DA's office has made into the victim witness room. This was needed basically when they have cases and they have witnesses or families that come in for the cases. They wanted to provide like a quiet, private place where they're not sitting out in the hallway with all the commotion going on out there. This is 3rd floor, looking at the branch 1 office entrance and also the probate entrance. In the past, they had one door approximately here, and this whole area was wide open with one counter. And what they wanted to accomplish here is basically split the 2 offices in half and run a wall back through. Now, the probate office has their own private counter and entrance, and the branch office has their own private counter, because in the past there was concerns about, for the probate office, of a lot of confidential conversations at the counter, and meanwhile there'd be people in there discussing court things, and they didn't have an area for discussing all the confidential things. So basically that covers the interior work. I did get a few questions over time about the outside work and what was the actual need of that. And it was the issue with the brickwork cracking and water getting in behind it. But when they started removing the brickwork, where they said, where we had talked about that rusting look seeping down the brick, this is what they found. The steel lintel basically was rusting out. Now, I'm not saying that this would have failed in a year or 2, but if it is an issue that we know about, you might as well take care of it now before you do have a real problem. So I just wanted to share that one picture with you, just to kind of give you an idea of what they found when they removed all that brickwork. So now we get down to the numbers. The original budget for the project was $1,846,000. Dimension for the design work and them handling the project, their cost $92,425. Myron was awarded the contract for the project. The original contract was $1,155,000. During the project, we did have some change orders, items that we stumbled across as they were doing the construction. Probably the largest one was we did add another section of roof work, basically above one of the balconies in the front of the building. That wasn't originally in the original plan for the roof. Then there were just oddball different things that came up that we decided to take care of during the project. That came in at $29,947.56. Also, there was parts of this project that were contracted by the county, not handled by Myron. We had cabling work done by Faith Technologies. We had HVAC work for the controls that was done by EC&D, who we use now for our HVAC work, and a couple other items that did come in throughout the project. All that came in $39,397.83. So after all that was said and done, remaining in the budget, we had $529,229.61. As some of you noticed, there was a lot of shrubbery taken out before this project. So talking with Heidi on that, we wanted to wait till spring to tackle that part of the project. So we basically set aside $20,000 to carry into next spring to take care of all the landscaping. So even after that, the final remaining in the budget, $509,229.61. And that's where the project came in at. Does anyone have any questions on any of it?
Questions? Mr. Nygaard?
Yeah, several weeks ago, I was here for a meeting, and it was a mild day, and there was a pretty good dripping leak in the overhang where we go out the front doors. I suppose you know all about that, but I just...
Yep, we did find the problem with that. There's a heat strip that goes down the drain on that balcony above it that's not working right, and we're taking care of getting that fixed.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. It's never ending.
Other questions?
Okay, thank you.
Thanks a lot, appreciate it.
Sure.
You know, here's, the last two presentations are two great examples of Waupaca County moving forward. We can't stand and watch things deteriorate. And that's because of supervisors like you. It is, that can see forward down the road, that we keep improving things. Thanks a lot, appreciate it. Okay, our next two guests here are two really good friends of ours for a lot of years now. Standing at the podium is Mr. Eric Powell, the Executive Director of East Central Region Planning. East Central Region Planning is a consortium of Calumet, Fond du Lac, Menominee, Outagamie, Shawano, Waupaca, Waushara, and Winnebago counties. And with him is Walter Wraith, who's actually been with East Central since, is it 1991?
Yeah, Moby Dick was a venom.
But Eric has been the executive director since 2005. I was appointed to their board back in 2004, and East Central Regional Planning was in one financial mess. It was really in bad shape. Until this man took hold along with Walter, and they pulled it out of the red and have been very active in these 8 counties. Wasn't always 8 counties, maybe it was even more at one time, I don't know. But thank you to these two gentlemen for what they did for East Central Wisconsin Regional Planning. So I welcome you two here today. They're going to tell us about what's going on.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, supervisors, for some time. It's been a couple of years since I've been out here. Decided to bring Walt with, so you got the two big guys here. I don't know who's running the shop while we're gone, but hopefully he'll still be there. Yeah, I do want to say, and then at first notice when I walked in the room, I immediately missed the presence of Jack Penny. He was a good person, very kind, sincere. He always challenged me, and I like to think I'm better for knowing him as well. So I feel for everyone that was good friends with Jack. I want to give you a rundown of some of the things we've been working on the last year or so and give you a look ahead as to what we foresee happening. As Dick Keppen had mentioned, I know you memorized all those counties. You weren't reading that off a list. But we do cover an 8-county area, a 10-county by statute, 8 are members. We were formed back in 1972 at the request of counties. There's 9 regional planning commissions across the state. We've got a 37-member board of commissioners that governs our day-to-day work and our budget. On Waupaca County's end, of course, the chairman, Dick Keppen, is a member, Dwayne Federowitz, and one of our newest ones, Jim Nygaard, and appreciate Jim's participation, active, very interested in the things that we do. Without giving a long history of regional planning, we exist to foster intergovernmental cooperation. We exist to work on those issues that cross jurisdictional boundaries. And since the 70s, there's been this call really to look at that larger geographical impact of all the local decisions that are being made. And I think you're attuned to that and understand that a bit. But it does present a challenge. It's not an area where a lot of people think very quickly about regional impacts or what they're doing and how it affects others. So that's part of our charge, is to educate and inform on those matters. We've got 8 counties. This is the region we cover. The 2 southwestern counties, Marquette and Green Lake County, have not been members of the commission for some time. We added Fond du Lac County back in 2015. Still my hope and my goal to get those 2 non-member counties involved. We've recently had some late conversations with Green Lake County, some communities expressing their need or desire to come into the commission. So I still have some work to do before I retire. Want to hit a few high points. You have about half a dozen programs that we want to quickly talk about and then give you a look to the future here. Sewer service area planning has been a large mainstay role for the commission. We've got 2 designated sewer service areas in Waupaca, Wautoma Silver Lake, and, excuse me, I would put Wautoma Silver Lake. I meant the city of Waupaca. My problem, I didn't notice that until I just looked at it now. I was thinking Waushara County. City of Waupaca should be on that list, and the embarrassed cloverleaf. We do have a day-to-day role working with DNR staff, engineering firms, communities on reviewing sewer extensions, facilities plans, anything for wastewater treatment for conformance with those plans. I do believe we'll be doing some updates of those plans, Waupaca's and embarrassed, probably in the next 3 to 4 years. I think they were updated a couple of years ago. Joe Huffman on my staff, who was a long time face in that program, retired in July, and Todd Verboemen is now taking that back over. Economic development, another critical role, certainly looking at more of the regional level, but we help a lot of communities. Tom Barron and my staff is now in charge of that program with the departure of Sarah Van Buren on our staff, so we're flexible and adaptable, luckily. But we serve as an economic development district by EDA. That requires that we prepare a regional comprehensive economic development strategy. I know Dave Keel and some others in the county get involved with that process. There are grant funds available through EDA, but sometimes it's a challenge to obtain those funds because of some of the distress criteria. And honestly, Waupaca itself, Waupaca County, is not distressed, so it's a challenge. But we do look for opportunities. We've been involved in global trade conversations with respect to economic development, involved a number of years ago doing a strategy which lives on today. Initiative 41 was a Department of Defense funded project for about 6 years, tying back way back to when Oshkosh Corporation had the large layoffs. And we did a lot of work to try and build a more resilient and diverse economy along that corridor, but also recognizing that 41 is the lifeblood for our entire region. You've got folks and businesses in Waupaca County that rely on that corridor just as equally as a community along that corridor. So we're trying to look at ways we can better connect the rural with the urban areas. And one of the initiatives that will be a follow-up after the grant, which was done at the end of December, that we're going to take on is trying to better educate, inform, and challenge our communities to get to be smart communities. You've probably heard the conversations about smart cities, smart communities. How do we use technology to our advantage? How do we use technology in the economic and the business development sense as well? So you'll see more coming out of us on that subject. We do provide some assistance to Dave and the Waupaca County LRF Committee with some of those changes that may be reaffirmed, and our staff will participate. And then we've got a wealth of data and some analysis services that we can provide to you at the county level, community level, or regional level. So I would encourage you to contact us if you've got any information needs regarding economic development. Well, you can bug Dave first, but then call us after he says no. So, recreation, another big part. We've got one full-time recreation planner who does a lot of work at all levels. Over the last year or so, she's done some help with the town of Dayton and updating a comprehensive outdoor recreation plan. Also did the same thing with the city of Clintonville, kind of in concert with doing a comprehensive plan update. And over the last few years, put some work into the Seven Maples Park site, doing a site plan for that facility in Clintonville. I'm going to hand it off here to let Walt take on his expertise of transportation and say a few words.
Thanks so much, and it is good to be back out here again. Take a look at what I'm supposed to say about transportation. But I've been over here quite a bit back in the day when Highway 10 was going through, and we were trying to make some decisions about that. And we worked real closely with the Department of Transportation on all the rural highway projects that I'll get into a little bit. But the commission itself is also a metropolitan planning organization. And what that means is every community, every urban area in the country, over 50,000 people, has to have a long-range transportation plan. And it has to look out 20 years. So that's kind of what we do for the Fox Cities urbanized area, and Oshkosh and Fond du Lac. And we work closely with that along the Highway 41 corridor with our neighbors, like in Green Bay. One of the things that we're doing, Eric mentioned 41 a little bit, we're taking a look at a commuter service study on 41 itself. If you've read the papers at all, there's a crash on Highway 41 almost every day between Fox Cities and Green Bay because it's congested. There's over 60,000 vehicles a day on there, and there's no plans in place to fix it. So what we'd like to know is how many people are running back and forth on there, and could we establish some sort of commuter service from Fond du Lac to Green Bay that would connect with all the fixed route systems in those urban areas. So that's some of the things that we're working on. But we also, in the regional program too, I remember when they moved Highway 10 and Highway 45 in '96, all that stuff happened. They were going to reconstruct the intersection down on Highway 96 and the new Highway 45. They were going to put in a signalized intersection there. It was so dangerous the way it was, the approaches to that. We came over to the Waupaca County Highway Committee, and those folks recommended that it be a roundabout intersection to save it. People coming up from Milwaukee on I-41, and then they get on 45, and they're all going 75 miles an hour all the way here, and then they get into Waupaca County, and they're just still hauling the mail on what's now new 45 North. So we thought that roundabout, and I think that thing has probably already saved some lives out there, and I was happy that the Waupaca County Highway Committee, who did the maintenance on there, they passed a resolution, and I went over to Outagamie County, and they passed a resolution, and the DOTs decided that, yeah, it's going to be a roundabout. I was happy about that. We're also real involved with the regional transportation, the transit, the specialized public transportation. In all of the counties have to do a coordination plan and talk about the needs of the transportation of public, especially specialized in elderly and disabled transportation. So each year the commission works with all the counties, Waupaca County included, to try to find solutions to that. How do we get service to those folks that are out there that need those services? So we do that, and we also try to link that to the urban areas so that it's really a mobility service. Mobility as a service is the way Dick likes to talk about it, how we can provide more transportation. That includes bicycle and pedestrian facilities. Am I supposed to be switching this?
I can switch.
It's new technology. I'm old school. Right, Bill? Yeah, we also provide a lot of the bicycle pedestrian facilities too. Work with Waupaca on their bike in town of Farmington on King Road. There's a lot of opportunities, and people have changed a long time. I remember I used to go out there and talk about bicycle and pedestrians, throwing tomatoes at you, but now it seems like everybody's into the health aspect. They realize it, the health and planning. We're trying to promote that as best we can. We also have the Safe Routes to School program, and you find it's in the back of the back there on the table, and there's some available up here, but this is the 10th year for the Safe Routes to School program. Melissa Kramer Battery of our office handles that, and she's got all, I think there's almost every school, if not every school in Waupaca County is involved with that, but to kind of celebrate the Safe Routes program too. Then there's the technical assistance side of it. We also have, we work closely with the Department of Transportation and Federal Highway Administration on all kinds of transportation issues. We have a travel demand model that we use to try to predict, and we have to look out 20 years. So what we've done is, with the department and consultants, we've developed a travel demand model that takes a look at existing socioeconomic data, the housing, employment, how many people are working, all the school enrollment, and all of that sorts of stuff, and we put them into geographic areas, and it cranks out trip generation, cars and trucks, and out onto the network, and we calibrate that to the actual traffic counts that are out onto the system, so that we can say, all right, if we have population and employment projections for 2045 or whatever, we should be able to see the impact on the highway. So we use that as one tool to help us try to project the needs out on the system and the future needs of the system. Also, what we do is help the communities a lot with collecting traffic data. We do a lot of technical assistance with PACER. Every town and village and county has to put in each year to rate their pavements on a scale of 1 to 10, like a pizza. A real good pizza's a 10, real good road's a 10, you know, that sort of thing. And then that's all handed into the state for take a look at what our needs are. There's really all that data together that show how much money that we need to support our transportation program. And we all know that those in the industry realize that there just isn't enough money. You can talk to anyone who's in the transportation industry, and they said there's far more needs than there are funding to, and we have to come up with some way to do this. And I came over to Waupaca County, all of the counties in the state, all 72 of them got together for transportation, and just to identify the need for more funding in transportation. I'm happy to say that I think there's some help is on the way in terms of transportation. We got a new governor, and we have a new transportation secretary, Craig Thompson, who was with the Transportation Development Association. He's truly a friend. He's probably been at this podium talking about transportation and needs in
Years past.
Yep. Anyways, he's just what the doctor ordered. I think we're going to see some changes in the transportation. I hope so. But we're still going to be doing what we can do to help the counties and take inventories with your PACER ratings. And we also have mile vision cameras. This is kind of a new technology, but instead of having somebody sit there at the intersection with the counter on who's turning what, we can put a video camera up on a post and let it watch the videos. Let's take a video of it. Then you send it to an outfit in Canada, and they'll tell you how many turns there were, and how much traffic there was on the highway. Just incredible, and a lot cheaper than having folks sitting around counting traffic. So the communities that need the mile vision work and that would like to have traffic counts, or would help with their pavement inventories, or help with their sign inventories, and on and on and on. Driveway access issues. Was I supposed to be flipping that thing? No, you're fine. I'm done with it, am I? I'm gonna let Eric carry on here. I could go on for a long time about transportation. It is an important issue. If you need some assistance with it, we'd certainly like to come and help out. Go ahead.
I'd like to hear you comment on Highway 15. What's
well, Highway 15 wasn't, the question was what's going on with Highway 15. The project wasn't canceled like so many of the projects were just canceled. This one was actually delayed a little bit. So it's still going to happen. And I feel more positive than ever that it's going to happen. It might have been delayed, but it's going to go forward. They've stuck a lot of money into that already, and just to walk away from that would not be a good idea. Somebody's taking minutes on this, or taking notes on this. The last Secretary of Transportation that we had his idea was that we don't have a funding problem, we got a revenue problem. We can't be building any more highways, and we can't be doing any more planning, and we can't be doing. I'm glad to see that's gone. If I told my wife that I wasn't going to be planning and I wasn't going to have money for the future, it wouldn't go over so good. We need to have a program that's taken care of. But help is on the way.
Thank you.
You bet.
Thanks, Will.
Thank you.
One of Walt's favorites. Brooks little comments at meeting. Why would you plan to not have money? That's stupid. So think about it, there's some truth to that. Let me wrap up on a few programs and then give you a look at the future here. Local assistance. A lot of what we do also is to assist local communities. By virtue of the county's membership, we have the ability to extend those services to communities. So over the last year or so, we've been providing assistance not only to the county in assisting their well testing program, but we've been helping out the city of Waupaca, who's going to be doing a revamp of their entire zoning ordinance. Might have a little contract work coming up. We've provided consultants demographic data for the city of Marion. We've been doing updates of the city of Clintonville's comprehensive plan, some address mapping. All of these kinds of projects, if they fit well within one of our major programs, economic development or transportation, there's a good chance we can do that project at no cost. If it's going to be a larger project, such as a comprehensive plan, we'll act like a consultant, we'll do contract work, but we still subsidize a lot of the work for those local assistance projects. We moved to a fee-based system for some of the major kind of projects that we do typically, and I want to make sure you and your communities know that there is still quite a bit of money from the commission subsidizing those, and it's a good value. I know, for example, that we would charge a small community like Clintonville about $3,500 to do a comprehensive outdoor recreation plan. Private sector consultants are probably looking $9,000 to $12,000 for similar kind of work. So keep that in mind as you have those needs in your communities. A couple of specialty programs. I think you're well familiar with East Central does run the county's NR135 non-metallic mining program along with 3 other counties. There are about 44 active sites that are permitted under that program. Scott Conkle, my staff has run that program since inception in 2001. I think there's just over 600 active acres that are mined within your county, and we've got responsibility to review the reclamation plans and issue permits for that. We coordinate very closely with the county on the operations end and the zoning end as well. If I'm correct, I think well over 160 acres of land have been reclaimed under that program since 2001. We've also been getting more and more involved in neighborhood planning, neighborhood level planning, and this is not just an urban thing for the big cities. In fact, many of our large cities along 41 don't have programs at all. But since about 2013, we've been working with Goodwill Industries and a number of other partners to develop this Neighborhood Partners program, which is now formally housed in Goodwill and is technically accessible to anyone within their service area in our region. Kathy Tunas of my staff has helped out. They have 7 pilot projects going on in neighborhoods in the Fox Cities and Oshkosh, but we want to extend that program and try and get smaller communities, the Waupacas, the Clintonvilles, the Wapons, involved in this program. We even have seen needs for better neighborhood organization in rural areas. If you think about rural subdivisions and the amount of connectivity people have as a neighborhood, it's fairly minimal. But if you think of it conceptually, if we want a strong region, we have to have strong communities. To have strong communities, you need strong neighborhoods. You got to kind of start at that level. We've also been working with the institutions, the planners, the policemen, the fire department staff, social workers, others who interact with neighborhoods, because a lot of us don't really know how to do that and how to empower the neighborhoods and not just step in and do things the way we think it needs to be done. So keep your eyes out for mini conferences, lunch and learns, other things related to that, or let me know if you've got more interest. We'll be pushing that probably in some of the more rural counties of our region over the next year. And then something we've been dabbling in for the last few years, which has really started to grow and have successes, is health and planning. We've all recognized the physical environment has a lot to do with health, mentally and physically. We have staff that over the years have started to make the right connections and working with health department staff in a number of our counties to try and integrate the two things. In their packet in front of you is a little couple-page document that was produced based on some of the cutting-edge work that our staff has been doing. So the American Public Health Association has recognized at the national level the things that we are doing in that arena. In fact, earlier this year, just got word that one of my staff, Tom Barron, has now been appointed to the state's Wisconsin Public Health Association Board of Directors. I can guarantee you he will be the only planner at the table with medical staff and others in that arena. So I think that goes to show you the value that this is having. I've been told anecdotally, and I think it's true, in the state, we as a regional planning commission are leading the conversation in this arena, and then in several respects at the national level, we're getting some recognition too. I did decide to bring a prop today, since it's not hung up on the wall yet, but late last year, we had applied for the Wisconsin Healthy Communities Initiative, where they, I believe, selected 30 communities in the state to receive awards. We are the only region in the state, so you are part of this, that had a silver level award for healthy communities. Problem is, we have one sign and how many entrances to our region, so we don't know what road it's going on yet. Likely we'll hang it up at our office, but if you want to borrow it and share, we're welcome to do that too. So a lot of good news there. A few things quickly upcoming. We do have a morning mini conference on April 26th. It'll be in Fond du Lac at the new Hotel Retlaw. We're going to be doing this on connected and autonomous vehicles, and we've got a great program and some speakers. We'll be getting the word out soon. But whether you're urban or rural, this is something that will be coming your way, and we need to deal with the challenges on how to take advantage of that or deal with things that come as a result. We also just started a new program with WEDC. They have a business disaster microloan program. So in instances where there is a disaster, not necessarily one getting a state or a presidential disaster declaration, they have dollars that can be loaned out to businesses to help kind of keep them afloat, do repairs and other things. For example, in 2018, we had the larger storms and flooding in the southern part of the state. Marquette County and Montello in particular was hit pretty hard. So we submitted an application to be part of this program, as well as the rest of the RPCs. And we've asked for about $120,000 out of these funds to go to no interest loans to those businesses in Montello. We just started the process of meeting with businesses to issue loans, so I can't give you any success rates there. The great thing about this program, and I had to have my attorney look at the agreement close as well, when those funds are paid back to East Central, we as East Central get to keep those dollars as long as they're used for economic development purposes. And so we're not going to get a boatload of money in right away. It has to come with the repayments, and I certainly don't wish disasters upon the region to fill my bank account, but it does provide some additional revenue that we can target towards economic development efforts, possibly even looking at working more directly with businesses for disaster planning and things of that nature. On the local assistance, I mentioned we'll be working with City of Waupaca probably on some zoning ordinance. City of Waupaca, they had a transition in administrators last year, so we planned on doing a downtown visioning workshop. That's been put on hold until I reconnect. And Scott Conkle is working with Town of Caledonia, reviewing and revisiting their mining ordinance. We're going to get started on the process for requesting technical assistance projects much earlier this year. Probably going to have that stuff come out in April, so communities and staff have adequate time to digest, think of these projects, and now that we've got a bit of a fee structure in place for some things, it gives time to run through the budgeting process. We're a little short on that time frame last year, but we'll try and fix that. On to budget and money to wrap things up. Our budget for 2019 is actually in pretty good shape. The levy, which the communities or the counties pay, comprise about 30% of that overall budget. Right now our budget is about $2.5 million. You can see between last year and this year, we did not raise the levy to any great degree, although based on the apportionment and equalized value changes, sometimes the county incurs an increase. So we kept it as low as we could, about $283 increase from last year to this year. But about $65,000 a year is contributed by Waupaca County. If you think of that, that's less than a cost of a mid-level staff person. And so everything we've talked about is what you get for, I think, a pretty good deal in exchange. We do have some problems, though, and we took a chance to look at our long-term budget and where things are going. And I think it's easy enough to see the linkage here. But over the last 4 or 5 years, we have not increased our levy a great deal, if at all. Last 3 years in a row, no change essentially. And some of that's based on my optimism of I think a few things are going to happen, and ultimately they don't. But nonetheless, the county's financial problems are starting to reflect, in our budgets, and it's going to cause some concern. Our budget for 2019 shows $107,000 surplus. And I'll explain why that is. but we took a 5-year projection, 6-year projection, looking at that and our cash reserve, a number of assumptions. But even with a 2% annual increase in that levy, if that's what the counties would buy into, we still look long-term at starting to be in the red and starting to dip in that cash reserve. So we're in a position that we're able to make some adjustments to kind of stave off the inevitable or push it back, but know that we've got some work to do moving forward to not only keep the county's levies reasonable, but we're down 2 staff positions from last year to this year. So some of that absorbed some of the hit that we might have taken, but we've got capacity to still continue on. We still have a desire from our commissioners and communities for more services, and so it's hard to provide more when you have less and less to work with every year, and we obviously want to meet those needs. So we're talking with our steering committee, Mr. Keplin's part of that, about a levy strategy. I don't know what that's going to look like, but by July, when we adopt our levy for 2020, I'm hoping that we at least have something on paper that, even if it says, you know, gee, roughly 1.5% every year moving forward would be great. And if they could stick to it, fine. If they can't for other reasons, that's understandable. But bottom line, we need about another $100,000 a year. If anyone's got that money laying around, I know that courthouse renovations came in less. So, but I think we'd be in pretty solid ground. It's not doom or gloom at this point. We've got some things in the works. We're looking at some opportunities for funding, longer term recurring funding in that health and planning field. I was just told of a program that might provide upwards of $100,000 a year for 5 years, which would be great. We know there's work to do in the housing arena, affordable housing and all sorts of housing issues, workforce development, getting people to their place of employment, and like I mentioned before, the smart community. So we've got some arenas that we're looking at, and I'm pretty positive we're going to find a solution to this before it becomes a major issue. Thank you.
Is there a question or two? Guess not. Thanks so much. Walter?
Just say one more thing.
Yeah.
Think about that for your communities, to need some sort of help and planning assistance and things like that. One thing that we are, that our consultants aren't, is we're gonna be around for a while. So all of our plans have kind of a lifetime guarantee on it. So if you want some changes, you want us to relook at it again or revisit it, we can do that. Again, thanks so much for the opportunity.
Thank you, Walter. Thank you, Eric, very much for coming.
Enjoy the rest of the day.
Okay, part of my report is I know that some of you went to the WCA legislative conference. Is there something you'd like to come up and tell us about? Mary Kay, what, I'm sure?
You think so?
I think you were taking notes. Someone told me you were. Isn't that right, Jerry?
I got a cheat sheet.
It was probably one of the better conferences. Dick, you should have been there. The governor was there. He brought in numerous members of his cabinet, which is great to see that all of them have knowledge or experience in the areas that they are now representing, which hopefully that helps, even if, as some of us would say, he is a Democrat, but let's see if the legislature can work with him as well. It works both ways. I'm not sure Robin Voss and Mr. Fitzgerald can do that, but we're hoping. And the other thing, Tommy Thompson was there. WCA gave us each a book. He signed and had pictures taken with the people that were interested in doing so. If you're interested, it is a really good book, what I've read of it so far anyway. I guess those were the highlights that I thought were the most interesting. We did have the 4 main legislators from each party sit and talk and give us hopefully what they're going to work together on in the next 4 years. If some of them get reelected or not, we'll see. Other than that, Jerry and Fred were there, so I'm sure they have something to say too. Thank you.
Mr. Zog, I'm sure you have something you'd like to enlighten us on.
This I'll leave with the clerk's office if anybody wants to look at it. This is from WCA. It's their legislative agenda, policy agenda, what they're looking to for the state to do in the next biennial budget. My gut feeling, it's going to be a big fight. Already the gas tax was brought up, and that's, I think, either going to be voted down or vetoed or some darn thing. But in any event, it's going to be a long process. I don't think you'll see any budget, or we won't see any money from the state until probably September, October, even though it's supposed to be done by June 30. One of the things that was kind of scary and really got my attention, there's a guy there talking as a futurist. And the big concern in the public sector and the private sector is more people are dying than are being born. And in the future, it's not only going to be tough for government to provide services because they won't be able to find qualified people to fill the positions of people retiring or moving on or dying or whatever it might be. And if you want to jot this down, there was a guy by the name of Oliver Buechse, B-U-E-C-H-S-E. And it's mystrategysource.com. That'll be on the WCA website, mystrategysource.com, on artificial intelligence, automation, and what the future is going to hold. One point you mentioned that productivity will increase per worker 30%, even though automation will eliminate jobs. So it's just kind of 20 years from now, 30 years from now, you people in the back are going to be old people like we are, and hopefully there'll be people to replace you. But that was one thing that really struck me heavy. The other thing, they figure infrastructure will be the driving economic force in local governments, probably for the next 10 to 20 years, with all the automation and the updates and technology today. There was a mention that there will be increases for health and human services because that's becoming the most costly part of county budgets across the state. And I think there's something going on now with the WCA lobbying the state to get some things going. And if they did as good a job as Diane does collecting our fees, we should get more of a share, I think. That's really the part that struck me most. Yeah, here this is one of the points, we'll be losing 36,500 millennials from 2000 to 2015, or we did lose that many. And I think this was just the state of Wisconsin. And the other thing on the WCA website is the Green Book. Check that out as well. And I think he said it's on the top right corner of the website. So that is my thing.
Thank you, Fred.
Also Mark Tauscher was there as well as Tommy. And believe it or not, Tauscher is 6'3", 300 pounds. His first love was basketball, but he ended up playing football pretty good for 11 years at the Packers. So.
Thank you. Anybody else? Gary?
Well, Dick, you changed your mind about wanting me to speak up here. When I asked for 30 minutes, you told me I couldn't have that.
Time's up.
Okay. The legislative conference that is held every year, to me, is one of the best things that I go to in regard to county government. We started out the first day with opening remarks by Mark O'Connell. He set the tone for a very positive conference coming up. Then Governor Evers was extremely interesting because he was kind of an unknown to many of us. Governor Walker had been there for years. We sort of had a good handle on his perspective on things, his direction going. But Evers was kind of an open slate, and he filled us in with kind of broad strokes, of course, of what he would like to do for the next 4 years. From then on, in the morning of that first day, Mark O'Connell took over the podium again, the stage, and he gave an extremely interesting presentation on predicting the future. He took us back historically about how people predicted the future, whether it be by the stars, whether it be by the entrails of animals, and all the way through them. Myself being a amateur historian, I found that to be one of the best parts of the entire conference, that step-by-step of historical perspective of predicting the future. But it all led to the obvious that we can predict the future better than any of those other methods by using research and digesting that research. And certainly no one can argue with that, and we do predict the future better than any generation before us. After that, of course, on that day, Tommy Thompson came in, and as we all know, former governor, and has perspective on the past, the present, and of course the future. My book that was given to me is now in the hands of the Waupaca County Library, and they accepted it with gratitude, and it'll be on their shelves when they get it all cataloged. On the morning of the last day, which I find every time to be the most interesting, is that is when they have the Senate Majority Leader, they have the Speaker of the Assembly, Mr. Voss Fitzgerald was the Senate. They go ahead and they also have the minority leaders in the Assembly, that's Gordon Hintz, and in the Senate it's Jennifer Schilling. They're up in the front on sort of a relaxed situation around the table on easy chairs. And Mark O'Connell shoots questions at them. Questions basically, except for the last one or two, basically that have to do with politics, have to do with their goals and objectives and things like that. At the end, he made it a little lighter by asking, if we came over to your house, what would we find prominent in your refrigerator? One of them said Bud Light, but I'm not sure that's what the lives by, but anyway. After that, we heard from the idea of getting together and working across the aisle. We heard that on the first day, we heard that with these legislative leaders on the second day. We've done that dance before, and hopefully this time it'll be successful. They agreed that funding of public education, healthcare, and transportation is number one. How to get there, of course, is always problematic. But they say bipartisan cooperation. They're working on the dark store question, which of course we've had interest here in Waupaca County on. A middle-class tax cut, clean water concerns, the opiate problem are all things that are high on their agenda. The budget preparation by the governor is anxiously awaited for. After that, Andy Phillips, the counsel for the Counties Association uses, came up, and I'm not going to belabor this, but he talked about the two big things on their agenda right now. It is a suit brought by Brown County taxpayers on the use of the tax that is called the sales tax on the county level. And that has big implications depending on which way that litigation goes to all of us counties. And the other thing was the shoreline zoning, and what counties can do along shoreline zoning for areas in their counties that have not developed a zoning and comprehensive plan. And that, of course, has a factor in Waupaca County. I believe there are 3 of our town areas that did not develop a comprehensive zoning plan in that. But anyway, terrific conference. I would recommend that you all go sometime or another, because you certainly will find it time worth spent.
Thank you very much, Jerry. Not that anyone cares, but I didn't go because I have one of my best friends that is dying of cancer. And I really wanted to be there for him, and I didn't know how he's gonna make it. And my best friend is Gus, my 11-year-old greyhound. He has sarcoma really bad, and a huge bunch. He doesn't seem to be a lot of pain. He's on a pain pill a day, and somebody will say, well, put him down. I can't do that. I've had 8 greyhounds die. 2 died suddenly had a burst of aneurysm at home, and the other 6 I had to take, and they let me know when it was time to say goodbye. Gus has not said that yet. He meets me at the door when I come home, and through my surgeries, he was always by my chair. And I get dressed in the morning, come here, he's right in the bedroom with me, by me. He's my best friend. Doesn't get mad if I come home late or anything like that. So that's where I was, I'm sorry. I did get this sales tax thing. I passed it out to you just for information. Mark O'Connell came up a few weeks ago, took me out for lunch here, and I asked him to bring any information, and so I just had it passed out to you for information. And we got to thank Mr. Morick for the continental breakfast today. Very good. Well, we've done yet. Oh, okay. It's been a long meeting. Okay, we need to we need to do the number 10. Approve the local emergency planning committee membership list. A motion by
Move to approve.
Supervisor Craig, Mr. Johnson.
Second.
And a second. Any comments or discussion? Please vote.
Mr. Murphy, did you hit yours?
I did.
This one.
There. Last chance to vote. That motion carries 23-0.
Okay, we are adjourned.
A motion and a second.
I didn't need a motion anymore.
Yeah, the motion second, no vote.
Trying to change things, I can't. Need a motion to adjourn, please. Supervisor Lair.
I make a motion that we adjourn.
Supervisor Hendrick.
I'll second that motion to adjourn.
Second by Supervisor Hendrick. And we're adjourned.